Ethan Cole didn't come to Maple Narrows, Vermont, because it was pretty. He came because it was quiet in a way cities never were. Quiet like snow falling on a roof at midnight, like wind moving through bare branches, like a lake that held its breath under ice. He rented a cabin with warped pine floors and a wood stove that popped like distant gunfire if you listened too hard. He paid cash. He kept his name off the guest book. He told himself he was here to heal, an old word people used when they didn't know what else to say to a man who still woke up with his jaw clenched and his hands searching for a rifle that wasn't there. Recovery was supposed to look like long walks, hot coffee, a body finally learning it wasn't being hunted anymore. But Ethan's nervous system didn't understand anymore. It understood patterns, and Rex understood them faster. Rex was 90 pounds of muscle and discipline, a German shepherd with a scar under his left eye, and the kind of stillness that made strangers step aside without knowing why. He wasn't just loyal, he was calibrated. He'd spent years learning the difference between a squirrel in the brush and a man trying not to be seen. On Ethan's first morning in Maple Narrows, Rex took one look at the tree line behind the cabin, lifted his nose, and froze. Ethan watched him. "Nothing out there," Ethan murmured, more to himself than the dog. Rex's ears stayed forward. His body stayed rigid. That was the first crack in the illusion that this place would let them disappear. By the third day, the crack became a visitor. She appeared at the edge of Ethan's yard like a small question that had wandered off the right page. A little girl, bundled in a puffy red coat too big for her, boots crusted with snow, hair the color of honey tucked under a knit hat. She stood there holding a plastic container with crackers inside, staring at Rex as if she'd found something rare. Ethan stepped onto the porch. "Hey!" he called, keeping his voice gentle. The girl flinched, then recovered quickly, chin lifting with stubborn courage. "My mom said I shouldn't come over," she announced, as if that explained why she absolutely had. Ethan didn't smile. Smiling invited conversation, and conversation invited details, and details invited a life he wasn't sure he could hold anymore. "What's your name?" "Sadie," she said. Then she nodded at Rex. "He's huge." Rex didn't move, but his eyes locked on hers, intense, unreadable. Most kids would have stepped back. Sadie stepped forward. Ethan's hand dropped without thinking to the collar grip point he'd trained into himself. Rex felt it, the quiet tension. "Easy," Ethan whispered. Sadie crouched slowly and held out a cracker. Rex sniffed the air, then looked to Ethan, waiting. Ethan gave the smallest nod. Rex took the cracker gently, like he understood this was a treaty. Sadie exhaled in relief and giggled. And just like that, cabin meant for solitude became a place a child visited every afternoon. She told Rex secrets. She told him stories about her school and her best friend and the mean substitute teacher who smelled like onions. She told him about the lake, how it froze so thick the fishermen drove trucks on it. She told him about the old quarry road behind the cabins, the one the adults told kids not to go near. Ethan listened from the porch steps, a silent shadow, letting the sound of her voice settle into the parts of him that had gone numb. He learned her mother's name without asking. Claire Monroe. He learned it the way you learn weather, by watching the way the sky changes. Claire was the kind of woman who moved like she'd been carrying responsibility for too long. Early 30s, dark hair pulled back into a practical knot, shoulders tight under her winter coat, eyes that flicked to corners like she was always measuring exits. Ethan saw her once from a distance at the mailbox cluster down the road. Sadie pressed close to her side, and Claire's posture said the same thing Ethan's did. Do not get too close. That week, the snow came hard. It turned Maple Narrows into a postcard that smelled like wood smoke and cold iron. The lake went from gray to white. The road narrowed into a single carved track. The town itself, 2 streets, a diner, a hardware store, a post office, a gas station with 1 working pump, looked like it had been built to be forgotten. On the 5th evening, the light faded early, as it always did in winter, and Sadie didn't show up. Ethan told himself it was normal. It was snowing. Her mother probably kept her inside. He told himself that. And still, he found himself looking at the window every few minutes. Rex was sprawled near the wood stove, head on his paws, breathing slow. Then, without warning, Rex lifted his head. Not lazily, not curiously, like a switch had been flipped. His ears snapped forward, his spine stiffened. A low vibration started in his chest. Not a bark, not even a growl yet, but the beginning of one. Ethan's hand stopped in the middle of cleaning his gear, cloth frozen mid-wipe. "What is it?" Ethan asked quietly. Rex stood. He moved to the door and pressed his nose against the crack as if trying to smell through wood. Then he made a sound Ethan hadn't heard since overseas, sharp, urgent, threaded with anxiety. Ethan's pulse changed. His body didn't ask permission. It simply became what it had been trained to be. He grabbed his jacket, slipped his phone into a pocket, and reached for the flashlight and the small pistol he kept locked away. A compromise between the man he wanted to be and the man he still was. Rex didn't wait. He bolted out the moment Ethan opened the door, snow swallowing his legs up to the knee, and still he ran like the storm didn't exist. Ethan followed. The snow hit his face like needles. The world narrowed to breath and crunching footsteps and Rex's dark shape cutting. Through white, they veered left, down the path toward the other cabins, toward the Monroe place. Ethan saw the porch light first, flickering, weak, then he heard it. A child's cry, muffled but sharp enough to cut straight through the storm. Ethan broke into a run. The scene arrived in fragments like snapshots burned into his brain. 3 men on the porch, heavy coats, work boots, faces hidden under hoods. Claire stood in front of the door, one hand behind her holding Sadie back, the other hand out like a stop sign. Her voice was shaking, but her stance was steady. "I told you no," she said. "You don't step on my property again." A man with a thick neck laughed. He held a folder like it was a weapon. "You're misunderstanding," he said. "We're not asking anymore." Another man, taller, slimmer, stepped forward. His smile looked practiced. "Claire Monroe," he said, voice smooth. "You've had time to think. We've been patient." Claire's jaw tightened. "Who are you?" The slim man glanced at the folder, as if the paper mattered more than her. "Call me Grant," he said. "I represent Hargrove Development. We're offering you an above-market buyout. You take it, you move, everyone's happy." Claire's laughter was short and bitter. "My husband's dead," she said. "This house is all we have, and the answer is still no." Grant's eyes flicked to Sadie, not with sympathy, with calculation. That was when Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Grant sighed like an irritated teacher. "Ms. Monroe," he said, "we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but it will happen." Claire leaned forward, voice rising. "Get off my porch!" The thick-necked man moved fast. He shoved Claire's shoulder like she was nothing. She stumbled into the porch railing. Sadie screamed. Ethan's voice came out low and hard. "That's enough!" All 3 men turned. They saw Ethan standing at the edge of the yard in the snow, broad-shouldered, face unreadable, eyes flat. They also saw Rex. Rex wasn't barking. He was standing beside Ethan like a shadow given teeth, head low, muscles coiled. Grant's smile flickered. "Who the hell are you?" the thick-necked man snapped. Ethan didn't answer. He looked at Claire. She was gripping the railing, one hand to her mouth, eyes wide with shock and anger. He looked at Sadie. Tears streaked her cheeks. Then he looked back at the men. "You're done," Ethan said. Grant's gaze moved to Rex and then back to Ethan, measuring risk. "This is a private matter," Grant said carefully. "Go back to your cabin." The thick-necked man took a step forward. "Or what?" he said. "You gonna sick your dog on us?" Rex's lip lifted, just enough to show the edge of a tooth. Ethan's voice went softer. "That's not how this works." Grant tried again, tone turning coaxing. "Look, man, you don't want to get involved. This is legal, contracts. Property rights. She's emotional. She's not thinking clearly." Claire's eyes flashed. "I'm standing right here." The third man, who'd been quiet, glanced back toward the dark road. Ethan saw the movement, nervous, waiting, like they had more people nearby. That was when the thick-necked man lost patience. He lunged toward Sadie. He didn't even reach her. Rex moved, not like a dog, like a missile released from a sling. He crossed the porch in a heartbeat and slammed into the man's chest, knocking him backwards so hard his boots left the wood. The man hit the porch steps with a grunt, air driven out of him. Grant stumbled back, shock breaking his composure. "Get him off!" he yelled. Ethan moved at the same time, closing distance through the snow. The third man swung a fist. Ethan caught his wrist, twisted, and used the man's momentum to fold him into the porch post. The man's breath left him in a wheeze. Grant reached into his coat. Ethan's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't!" Grant froze, hand half hidden. Rex stood over the thick-necked man, teeth bared, growl rumbling so low it vibrated the boards. The thick-necked man whimpered. "This is insane!" Grant hissed. "You just assaulted?" "You stepped onto a widow's porch," Ethan said, "and put your hands on her." Grant's eyes hardened. He pointed a finger at Claire. "This is not over," he said. Then he looked at Ethan. "You just made it worse." He backed away, dragging the third man with him. Rex stayed locked on them until they reached the yard. The thick-necked man crawled to his feet, clutching his ribs. All three retreated to a dark SUV parked crooked near the road. The engine roared, tires spun, snow sprayed. And then they were gone, swallowed by night and storm. Silence rushed back in, heavy. Sadie ran forward and wrapped her arms around Rex's neck, like she'd been holding her breath for the last hour. Rex softened instantly, tail thumping once, head turning to lick her cheek. Claire sank onto the porch step, shaking. Ethan stepped closer, but kept distance, careful not to crowd. "You hurt?" he asked. Claire stared at him, her eyes bright with fury and fear. "I'm fine," she whispered. "But they don't stop." Ethan nodded once. "What do they want?" Claire swallowed, then gestured with her chin toward the dark woods beyond the cabins. "The quarry road," she said. "They say they're building a lakefront resort, cabins, marina, tourist thing." Ethan felt the lie in it immediately. Not because he had evidence, because his instincts didn't believe in men who threatened children for resorts. "And you're the only holdout," Ethan said. Claire laughed without humor. "My husband was," she said, "before he died." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "How did he die?" Claire hesitated. Her gaze flicked to Sadie, who was still hugging Rex like he was a life raft. "Car accident," Claire said, and the way she said it was the way people repeat a story they've been forced to accept without ever believing it. Ethan looked at the porch railing again. He'd come here for quiet, but quiet was a luxury. "Go inside," he said. "Lock your doors." Claire blinked. "What are you doing?" Ethan's mouth tightened. "The thing I'm good at," he said. He walked back through the storm, Rex at his side, Sadie's red coat disappearing into the warmth of the Monroe cabin behind them. Inside his own cabin, Ethan called the only person he trusted to hear the truth without asking him to turn it into something polite. Ben Rourke. Ben answered on the second ring, voice dry with amusement. "If you're calling me from a cabin in the woods, Ethan, I swear." "Change of plans," Ethan said. Ben's tone shifted instantly. "What happened?" Ethan stared at the window, watching snow streak past the glass. "A widow," he said. "A kid. Men showed up. It got physical." "How physical?" Ethan's eyes flicked to Rex, now sitting by the door like a sentinel. "Enough," Ethan said. "And it's not just land, it's something else." A beat. Ben's voice went quieter. "Where are you?" "Vermont," Ethan said. "Small town, Maple Narrows." Ben exhaled. "You always pick postcard places for trouble." "Can you come?" Ben didn't hesitate. "Give me 6 hours," he said, "and tell Rex not to start a war without me." The next morning, Maple Narrows looked clean again, like nothing bad could happen in a town covered in fresh snow. Ethan knew better. He drove into town with Rex in the back seat. Sadie's red hat still stuck in his mind like a warning light. He parked outside the sheriff's office, a small building with peeling paint and a flag that snapped in the wind. Inside, a deputy behind the desk looked up with tired eyes. "Can I help you?" Ethan kept his voice calm. "I need to speak with the sheriff." The deputy's gaze flicked to Rex through the window. "We don't allow dogs inside," he said. "He's not a pet," Ethan replied. The deputy's mouth tightened. "Sheriff's busy." Ethan leaned in just enough that the deputy could see he wasn't here to be brushed off. "This is about Claire Monroe," Ethan said, "and men from Hargrove Development showing up on her porch last night." The deputy's eyes changed, just a flash. Recognition, then discomfort. He stood and disappeared into the back. A moment later, Sheriff Dana Mercer came out. Late 40s, hair cut short, posture rigid like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. Her eyes were sharp, but exhausted sharp, not eager. She looked Ethan up and down, then nodded toward the hallway. "My office," she said. Inside, the room smelled like old coffee and paper. Mercer shut the door and studied him. "You're not local," she said. "No," Ethan replied. "And you're involving yourself in something you don't understand." Ethan's gaze stayed steady. "Then help me understand." Mercer's jaw worked. "Hargrove," she said quietly, like the name tasted bad. "Trent Hargrove. Owns half the county on paper, owns most of it in practice." "Is Claire's land part of a buyout project?" Ethan asked. Mercer's laugh was sharp. "Officially, it's development," she said. "Lakeside revitalization, jobs, tourism, money. Everyone in town wants to believe in that." "And unofficially?" Ethan asked. Mercer's eyes held his. "Unofficially," she said, "it's pressure, intimidation, permits fast-tracked, complaints buried, people paid to look away." Ethan leaned back slightly. "Why can't you stop it?" Mercer's face hardened. "You think I haven't tried?" she snapped, then caught herself, exhaling. "I have 2 deputies. One of them is friendly with Hargrove's people. If I push without proof, they bury me in lawsuits and call it harassment." Ethan nodded slowly. "What about last night?" Mercer's gaze flicked away. "I got a call," she admitted. "But by the time we got out there, the men were gone. Claire wouldn't give a statement." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's afraid." Mercer's expression softened a fraction. "She's tired," Mercer said. "Her husband died. She's been holding the line alone. People in town keep telling her to take the money. Do what's best for your kid." Ethan's voice dropped. "And what's Hargrove's leverage?" Mercer hesitated. Then she reached into a drawer and pulled out a thin file, a printed notice. It read, "Child Welfare Inquiry, Preliminary." Ethan's stomach turned. "They're threatening her with CPS," Ethan said. Mercer nodded once. "They're not stupid," she said. "They don't just break bones. They break people." Ethan looked at the paper, then back at Mercer. "If they push hard, will you act?" Mercer's eyes were grim. "If you give me something real," she said, "I'll do more than act." Ethan stood. "Then I'll give you something real." When Ben Rourke arrived that afternoon, he didn't pull up like a hero. He pulled up like a man delivering groceries. An old SUV, snow on the hood, duffel bags in the back. Ben stepped out, lean and wiry, eyes bright with intelligence that never shut off. He wore a knit cap pulled low and a smile that was half sarcasm, half affection. He looked at Ethan's cabin, then at Rex, then back at Ethan. "I leave you alone for a month," Ben said, "and you adopt a town." Ethan didn't smile. "I need eyes," he said, "and I need proof." Ben's grin faded. "All right," he said. "Show me the problem." They worked like they always had, quietly, methodically. Ben built a small mesh network from his gear, hidden cameras and motion sensors placed like invisible tripwires around the Monroe cabin and Ethan's. He mapped the road in and out. He listened to the local radio chatter, the county frequencies, the soft hum of cell towers. Ethan did his own work, walking the perimeter, noting tracks in the snow, watching how vehicles moved through town. Rex did what neither of them could. He listened to the world the way animals do. Smell first, sound second. Then the invisible tension that humans pretended didn't exist. On the second night, Rex woke Ethan with a low rumble. Ethan eased out of bed and peered through the window. 2 figures stood at the edge of the woods near the Monroe place. Not thugs, too still, too patient. Ben checked his laptop. "Thermals show 4, he whispered. "Maybe 6, they're spread out, watching." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So the amateurs were the opening act," he said. Ben nodded. "These guys move like trained operators," he murmured. "Not security guards, not local toughs." Ethan looked toward Claire's dark window. "And they're watching a single mom like she's a military target," Ethan said. Ben's voice was grim. "Which means she's sitting on something," he replied. "Or under it." The next day, the pressure shifted from quiet surveillance to something nastier. A county truck rolled up to Claire's house mid-morning. A man stepped out with a clipboard, reflective vest, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Fire Marshal Delling," he announced, as if the title itself was authority. Claire stood on her porch with Sadie behind her and Rex beside them. Ethan hovered just off to the side, a presence more than a participant. Delling looked at the porch steps. "These aren't up to code," he said. "They've been here 20 years, Claire replied. "Codes change," Delling said brightly. "Also, I'm going to need to inspect the interior, smoke detectors, wiring, furnace." Claire's mouth tightened. "Do you have a warrant?" Delling chuckled. "No need," he said. "This is a safety check. You don't want to be on the wrong side of child safety concerns, do you?" Claire went pale. Sadie clutched Claire's sleeve. Ethan's voice cut in. "Show me your paperwork," Ethan said. Delling's smile faltered. "You're... who?" Ethan held out his hand, palm up. Delling hesitated, then handed over a form. Ben, from the doorway, took a photo with his phone, zoomed in. His eyes narrowed. "This is photocopied," Ben murmured, "and the county seal's wrong." Delling stiffened. "Excuse me?" Ethan's eyes stayed cold. "You're not a fire marshal," he said. Delling's smile vanished. He backed down the steps, voice turning sharp. "You people don't understand," he snapped. "You're making this harder. There are processes. There are reports." Claire's voice shook with rage. "This is harassment," she said. Delling pointed at her. "It's concern," he said, "and I suggest you start cooperating." He got into his truck and drove away, leaving tire tracks, like scars. Half an hour later, a different vehicle arrived, this time a plain sedan. A woman stepped out in a neat coat, hair pulled back, clipboard held like a shield. She introduced herself as Marissa Vale from Child Services. Claire's hands started to tremble. "Ms. Monroe," Vale said gently, "we received a report regarding an incident on your property involving violence." Claire's voice cracked. "I was assaulted," she said, "in front of my daughter." Vale's eyes didn't change. "I'm sorry," she said, tone rehearsed. "But anytime a child is present during a violent incident, we're required to assess the environment." Ethan felt something dangerous rise in him, something he couldn't punch or tackle or disarm. This was a different battlefield. Vale's gaze drifted to Rex. "And a large dog," she said softly. "Working animal?" "He's trained," Ethan said. Vale nodded, still polite, still cold. "May I speak with Sadie alone?" she asked. Claire's throat tightened. "No," she whispered. "She's scared." Vale's smile remained. "That's why we're here," she said. Ethan watched Claire's hands clench and unclench like she was trying not to break apart. Ben leaned close to Ethan and murmured without moving his mouth. "This is coordinated," he said. "Paper cuts, stress, make her fold." Ethan looked at the lake beyond the trees, frozen and quiet, and felt the truth settle. This wasn't about buying land. This was about removing a woman who wouldn't leave. That night, after Vale left with promises of follow-up visits and continued monitoring, Claire sat at her kitchen table staring at nothing. Sadie fell asleep on the couch with Rex at her feet, one small hand still tangled in his fur. Ethan stood near the doorway, careful not to take over the room, but unable to leave. Claire finally spoke, voice raw. "I'm so tired," she whispered. Ethan nodded once, understanding. "What's really on your land?" he asked quietly. Claire flinched like the question hurt. Then she stood and walked to a cabinet, opened it, pulled out a worn envelope. She slid it across the table. Inside was a map, hand-drawn. Quarry Road marked in red. A square drawn near the lake with a note written beside it in her husband's handwriting. "Do not trust Hargrove." Claire's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "My husband, Luke, he worked for the state," she said. "Environmental engineer. He was assigned to inspect old industrial sites, the quarry, the lake." Ethan's gaze stayed on the map. "What did he find?" Claire swallowed hard. "He found something that wasn't supposed to be there," she said. "Under the quarry road, a concrete structure, sealed, no permits, no records, like it didn't exist." Ben's eyebrows rose. "A bunker?" he guessed. Claire nodded slowly. "Luke said it was new," she whispered. "Too new to be an old mine. Shaft. And he said the lake." It wasn't just a lake. The bottom dropped off sharply in one spot, like a man-made channel, like something heavy needed access. Ethan's mind clicked through possibilities. Smuggling, storage, something that wanted to be hidden. Claire's voice shook. Then he died, she said. And a week later, Hargrove's people came offering to buy the house. Ethan met her eyes. You think Luke was killed? Claire's jaw tightened. I think Luke was inconvenient, she said. Rex lifted his head at the edge of the room, ears pricking as if he felt the air thicken. Ben leaned back, expression turning sharp. Trent Hargrove, he murmured. Development company on the surface, something else underneath. Ethan stared at the map. We need to see it, he said. Ben nodded. At night, he replied, and quietly. They moved before dawn, when the world was still gray and the snow held everything in a hush. Ethan left Rex with Claire and Sadie at first, because if something went wrong, he wanted Rex there to protect them. But Rex refused. He planted himself at the door, staring at Ethan with that calm, stubborn certainty only a dog could have. Ethan exhaled. Fine, he whispered. Stay close. They took the quarry road on foot. It cut through pines heavy with snow and past rusted warning signs half buried in drifts. The air smelled faintly of stone and something metallic beneath it. Ben's device pinged softly, mapping signals. Cell coverage drops here, Ben murmured, but I'm picking up something else. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What? Ben held up his scanner. A low-power signal, he said. Not consumer, not random. It's steady, like a beacon. They reached the bend where the old quarry pit opened up. A jagged wound in the earth filled with snow, rock walls rising like cliffs. Ben pointed. There, he said. At first it looked like nothing. Then Ethan saw it. A seam in the rock where there shouldn't be one. A rectangle of concrete buried under snow, edges too clean. Ben brushed snow away, fingers numb. A hatch, steel, no rust. A padlock that looked new. Ethan's mouth went tight. This isn't abandoned, he said. Rex growled low. Ben's eyes flicked upward. Company, he whispered. Ethan followed his gaze. On the ridge above the quarry, barely visible against the gray, a figure stood still. Watching, Ethan's body went cold. He grabbed Ben's sleeve and pulled him back into the tree line. Rex moved without being told, pressing close, silent. They waited. The figure didn't move. That was worse than movement. Movement was human. Stillness was trained. Ben's breath was shallow. They knew we'd come, he whispered. Ethan stared at the ridge. We just confirmed Claire's right, he said. Now we survive long enough to prove it. They retreated the way they came, leaving the hatch untouched, because touching it would have been the spark that lit the whole fire. Back at the cabin, Ben checked his network. More signals, he murmured. They're tightening the perimeter. Ethan looked at Rex, then at Claire's house through the trees. They're moving from pressure to removal, Ethan said. Ben swallowed. And paper cuts didn't work fast enough, he finished. That night, the storm came again, but different. Not the soft, patient snow. Wind, ice, heavy flakes that moved sideways like thrown sand. The kind of weather that erased footprints and muffled sound, the kind of weather people used as cover. Ben's laptop beeped. His eyes snapped to the screen. Motion trip, he whispered. Multiple. West side. Ethan's muscles tightened. How many? Ben's fingers flew. 8, he said. Maybe 10. They're stacked. Organized. Ethan's voice went low. Professional team, he said. Ben nodded. And there's a jammer, he added, grim. They're killing signals. Phones won't work. Ethan's gaze went to the Monroe cabin. Claire and Sadie were there. Rex lifted his head, already vibrating with readiness. Ethan grabbed his radio and pressed it. Claire, he said softly. You awake? A crackle. Claire's voice came back tight. Yes, she whispered. Sadie's sleeping. Rex is staring at the door. Ethan swallowed. They're coming, he said. Go to the storm cellar. Now. Take Sadie. Take Rex. Claire's breath hitched. You're telling me to lock myself underground. I'm telling you to stay alive, Ethan replied. Do it. A pause. Then Claire's voice, trembling but steady. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Ethan and Ben didn't stay in Ethan's cabin. They moved to the tree line, to a natural hollow behind a fallen pine, where Ben had hidden a small speaker array and motion-triggered floodlights facing Claire's porch. Ben watched his feed. 2 teams, he whispered. One to the Monroe house, one to your cabin. Ethan's jaw clenched. They think we'll defend our own, he said. Ben's eyes stayed on the screen. They think predictable, he replied. The first team reached Claire's porch, dark shapes in black gear, moving like water. The lead man lifted his hand. Ethan's voice was barely a breath. Now, he said into the radio. Claire, underground, flipped the switch Ben had shown her. Floodlights slammed on. The storm turned white hot. The operators staggered, night vision blown, hands flying to their faces. Ben triggered the speakers. A high, piercing tone flooded the air, designed to shred eardrums through comms. The operators ripped their earpieces out, disoriented. And then Rex moved, because Rex had not gone into the storm cellar. He'd refused. He'd stayed on the stairs above it, hidden in the darkness, body coiled. When the men stumbled, Rex exploded forward and hit the last man in the stack, jaws clamping onto a thigh with surgical precision. The man screamed, collapsing. The others spun. Ethan fired twice. Non-lethal shots to legs, clean and fast. 2 men dropped. Ben tackled the third from the side, slamming him into the porch railing and wrenching his weapon away. The fourth tried to raise his rifle toward the door. Rex released and lunged again, slamming into the man's arm. The rifle skittered across the porch. Within seconds, the first team was down, bound with zip ties, groaning in the snow. Ethan's breath came out controlled. The storm tried to hide everything, but the storm couldn't hide Rex's eyes. Ben's voice went sharp. "Second team's at your cabin," he hissed. Ethan turned. The second team hit Ethan's cabin door with a breach. They poured inside and found nothing. Ben had looped the thermal feed hours earlier. He'd made it look like 2 men slept there, glowing ghosts on their scopes. Now their scopes lied. Their leader cursed. "It's a trap!" he shouted. Ben hit phase 2. Inside the cabin, hidden strobe lights flashed violently, turning the room into a nauseating pulse. Speakers roared with recorded gunfire, overwhelming, disorienting. The operators stumbled, trying to orient in chaos. Ethan moved through the snow behind them, like a shadow. He took the first man down with a hard strike to the side of the knee. The second swung blindly. Ethan stepped in, trapped the arm, and slammed him face first into the doorframe. Ben fired a small flash device low, brief but brutal. The remaining men faltered. Rex appeared in the doorway like a nightmare given fur and teeth, and the last operator's courage broke. He tried to run. He got 3 steps before Ethan caught him and dropped him hard into the snow. When it ended, 8 men lay bound in the storm. Ben panted, eyes wide with adrenaline. "These are not Hargrove's thugs," he whispered. Ethan nodded. "No," he said. "These are cleanup." Ben's scanner beeped again, different this time. "Vehicles," Ben said sharply. 2, fast, coming from town. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "More?" he asked. Ben checked. "No," he said, voice strange. "Not them." Blue lights flashed in the distance, cutting through snow. Sheriff Dana Mercer's cruiser slid into view, followed by a second. Mercer stepped out, shotgun in hand, eyes taking in the scene. Bound men in tactical gear, illegal weapons, floodlights blazing like daylight. Her face changed slowly, from exhaustion to grim satisfaction. "What the hell did you catch?" she asked. Ethan met her gaze. "Proof," he said. Mercer looked at the men, then at Ethan, then at Rex standing like a statue beside Claire's porch. She swallowed. "Okay," she said quietly. "Now I can move." By morning, Maple Narrows wasn't quiet anymore. Federal agents arrived in unmarked vans. The sheriff's office turned into a hive. The captured operators disappeared into custody, and suddenly the town learned what it had been trying not to see. But Hargrove didn't disappear. He adapted, because predators always did. The next wave wasn't armed men. It was paperwork, health inspectors, zoning inspectors, environmental compliance notices, surprise audits, letters with threatening language. Claire's porch gained a bright orange condemnation warning for structural hazards. The county demanded repairs within 48 hours, or fines would bury her. Sadie's school received anonymous calls about unsafe living conditions. Claire stopped sleeping. The light in her eyes dimmed the way lights dim when someone keeps turning the knob down day after day. Ethan watched it happen and felt a helpless anger that made his hands shake. Ben leaned close one night while Claire sat at the table staring at another letter. "This is psychological warfare," Ben murmured, "and it's working." Ethan's voice was hard. "Then we stop playing defense," he said. Ben's eyes sharpened. "How?" Ethan looked at the map again. The quarry hatch, the hidden structure. "We expose the real thing," Ethan said. "Not the paperwork, not the pressure, the reason." Ben nodded slowly. "Then we need Hargrove's real finances," he said. "Not the polished development brochures." Ethan's eyes stayed cold. "Find where he's dirty," he said. Ben smiled without humor. "Give me a night," he replied. He didn't need a night. He needed 3 hours. Ben dug into Hargrove's company filings, shell entities, land trusts, and consulting fees. He followed money the way wolves follow blood trails, quietly, patiently, until it led to something that shouldn't exist. Then Ben's face went pale. "Ethan," he whispered. Ethan looked up. Ben turned his laptop. A ledger. Encrypted, hidden behind layers of fake invoices, payments, large ones, not to contractors, to a private account, offshore, and tagged with a name that didn't match Hargrove Development. Mariner Consortium. Ethan stared. "Who are they?" he asked. Ben's voice was tight. "I don't know," he said, "but they're not local, and Hargrove isn't the boss. He's the middleman." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And middlemen panic when their bosses get impatient," he said. As if the universe wanted to prove him right, Ben's passive facial recognition pinged on a traffic camera feed near the diner. A man stepped out of a plain sedan, average height, average build, neutral face, neutral coat, forgettable in a way that felt deliberate. Ben's breath caught. "Oh no," he whispered. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What?" Ben pulled up an image from an old classified folder he shouldn't have had access to. A dusty photo from a conflict zone. The same man. Ben swallowed. "That's a cleaner," he said. "Not a mercenary, not security. A specialist used to erase problems." Ethan's stomach dropped. "And we're the problem," he said. Ben nodded, voice grim. "And not just us," he said. "Claire, Sadie, even Hargrove if he's messy." That afternoon, the cleaner walked into the diner like he belonged there. He didn't threaten, he didn't posture. He ordered coffee. He sat where he could watch the door. And when Ethan entered, the man's eyes flicked up, calm. "Mr. Cole," the cleaner said softly, like they were acquaintances. Ethan didn't sit. He stayed standing, hands loose at his sides, Rex at his heel, still as carved stone. "You know my name," Ethan said. The cleaner's mouth barely moved. "It's my job to know," he replied. Ethan's voice stayed low. "Then you know the wrong people are involved," he said. "This isn't development." The cleaner stirred sugar into coffee he didn't drink. "People with your background," he murmured, "tend to complicate simple solutions." Ethan leaned in slightly. "Hargrove is skimming," he said. "Offshore account, Mariner Consortium. He's stealing from the people he works for." The cleaner paused, just a fraction. But Ethan saw it. Interest. Ethan slid a folded napkin across the counter. On it, Ben had written an account number and a transaction trail. The cleaner didn't touch it at first. "You're either lying," he said calmly, "or you're reckless." Ethan's eyes held his. "I'm neither," he replied. "I'm pointing you at the real leak." The cleaner looked at Ethan for a long moment, then finally took the napkin and slipped it into his pocket with a smooth, controlled motion. His coffee remained untouched. He stood. "You should leave town," he said quietly. Ethan didn't blink. "You should pick better employers," he replied. The cleaner's face didn't change, but the air felt colder when he walked out. That night, Maple Narrows caught fire, not from flames, yet. From movement. Ben's drone feed showed 3 black vans entering town, with their lights off, moving in perfect formation. Another 2 headed toward the sheriff's office. Ben's voice went tight. "Those aren't Hargroves," he said. "Those aren't the cleaners. That's the consortium." Ethan's blood went cold. "They're here to erase the whole board," he said. The assault hit before dawn. The vans split like teeth closing. One team breached Hargrove's office above the real estate storefront in town, because Hargrove had insisted on being close to his project, like a man who believed proximity was control. The cleaner was there too, because he had been planning to erase Hargrove first. Now, the cleaner found himself trapped between the consortium and the man he'd come to kill. At the sheriff's office, Dana Mercer barricaded with her 2 deputies, one loyal, one uncertain, plus Claire and Sadie, who Mercer had brought in for protection the moment she realized the town was about to become a battlefield. Jed Callahan, an old fisherman who'd quietly hated Hargrove for a year, showed up with a shotgun and 2 friends, faces grim. "Never thought I'd be shooting at suits," Jed muttered. Mercer's eyes were hard. "Today you shoot at anyone trying to kill a child," she snapped. Outside, the consortium team moved like machines. No shouting, no threats. They breached with the calm certainty of people who didn't expect resistance to matter. Ethan and Ben moved through town the way they always had, using shadows, timing, rooftops, alleys, knowing the terrain mattered more than numbers. Rex stayed close, silent, his body a compass pointing to danger. Gunfire cracked in the icy air. Glass shattered, snow leapt up in small eruptions. Ben cursed as his comms cut. "They're running a wide-spectrum jammer," he hissed. "We're blind." Ethan's voice was hard. "Then we go old school," he said. They reached the sheriff's office just as a breach charge blew the front door inward. Mercer fired once, a warning that turned into a hit. A consortium man went down. The others didn't flinch. They stepped over him like he was debris. Inside, Sadie screamed. Claire pulled her tight, eyes wild. Rex growled low, vibrating, ready. Ethan moved into the doorway like a wall. Ben tossed a small device, an improvised noise blast that disoriented just long enough. Ethan dropped the first intruder with a brutal strike. The second raised a rifle. Rex launched and hit him at the elbow, forcing the weapon down. Mercer fired again. Blood sprayed into snow. The air smelled like iron and cordite, and something older, fear turning into fury. Across town, Hargrove, cowardly, desperate, saw chaos and tried to run. He crawled out a back window, suit torn, face slick with sweat. He didn't run toward safety. He ran toward leverage, because weak men always did. He reached the sheriff's office through a side door blown off its hinges and found Claire and Sadie in a back hallway. Claire's eyes widened. "Hargrove!" she breathed, voice full of disgust. Hargrove's face was twisted with panic. "You did this," he hissed. "You ruined everything." He grabbed Sadie by the arm and yanked her close. Sadie screamed, kicking. Hargrove pressed a pistol to her head with shaking hands. "Stop!" he shrieked, voice cracking. "Everyone stop, or I swear—" The gunfire outside faltered. Even the consortium team paused, assessing. Ethan stepped into view slowly, hands raised. Rex moved beside him, body low, growl rumbling like thunder under ice. Claire's breath came in ragged sobs. "Sadie," she whispered. "Baby, look at me." Sadie's eyes were huge with terror, tears freezing on her cheeks. Hargrove's hand shook. Ethan's voice was calm. "Trent," he said, "your bosses are here. They don't care about you." Hargrove's eyes darted wildly. "They'll kill me!" he screamed. "They'll kill me and I'll take all of you with me." Ethan took one slow step closer. "You're not a player," Ethan said. "You're a receipt." Hargrove's breathing turned frantic. Rex's muscles bunched. Ethan didn't look at Rex. He didn't need to. He gave the quiet command. "Now!" Rex exploded forward, slamming into Hargrove's gun arm. The pistol fired once, wild, shattering a light fixture overhead. Glass rained down. Ethan moved faster than thought. He grabbed Sadie, yanked her clear, shielding her with his body. Mercer fired a clean shot into Hargrove's shoulder, dropping him. Hargrove hit the floor, screaming, blood blooming through his suit like a stain he couldn't buy his way out of. Claire snatched Sadie into her arms, sobbing like her whole body had been holding itself together with thread. Outside, the consortium team saw the shift. They didn't press, they withdrew. Not in panic, professionals didn't panic. They simply disappeared the way they came, melting into snow and darkness. And then, like thunder arriving after lightning, federal helicopters swept over the town, drawn by Mercer's earlier call, Ben's data dump, and the captured operators that had finally made the situation too loud to ignore. Agents swarmed the streets. the sheriff's office turned into a crime scene. Hargrove was cuffed on the floor, weeping and cursing and begging in the same breath. Claire held Sadie so tight, her knuckles went white. Ben stood beside Ethan, chest heaving, eyes scanning the dark corners as if expecting the world to keep coming. Rex stood in front of Claire and Sadie like a living wall, ears up, eyes burning. Mercer stepped close to Ethan, face streaked with soot and snow. "Is it over?" she asked quietly. Ethan stared down the street where the black vans had vanished. His voice was low. "No," he said. "They don't erase like that and stop." Ben swallowed. "They came to sanitize," he murmured. "And they'll try again somewhere else." Claire's voice broke through, raw. "Then what do I do?" she whispered. "How do I keep my daughter safe?" Ethan looked at Sadie, who was shaking but alive, her face buried in her mother's coat. He looked at Rex, who had thrown himself at danger without hesitation, because that's what he did, because loyalty wasn't a feeling for him. It was a function. Ethan's voice softened, just a fraction. "You keep telling the truth," he said, "and you stay surrounded by people who won't let them silence you." Mercer's eyes held his. "And you?" she asked. Ethan didn't answer right away, because the truth was simple and heavy. He had come here to disappear, but Rex had dragged him back into the world the moment a child cried in the snow. Ethan finally spoke. "I don't run from this anymore," he said. Rex's tail thumped once, slow and certain, and in the first pale light of morning, Maple Narrows looked peaceful again, snow falling softly, lake silent under ice, town quiet as if it hadn't almost been erased. But Ethan knew peace wasn't something you found. It was something you defended. And somewhere behind the beauty of winter, something bigger than Hargrove had been watching, waiting, learning. Because the real enemy didn't rage. It didn't threaten. It simply returned, quietly, until someone finally stopped it for good.